I suppose every good story starts with once upon a time, so we will start exactly that way. Once upon a time, there came a time when God was searching people's hearts. And you see, I lived on a street called Holy Street. Forgotten, disgusting, lonely, and lies were the street names of all those who weren't believers. So of course, God wanted to save the best for last and finally made his way to my house. I thrust open my grand double doors, feeling undoubtedly bold, and led the God of the universe through the hallways of my home. God saw the hanging pictures, colorful and pure, depicting all the time I had spent in the church, serving the Lord. I led him through my many rooms, showing him the sights of countries I had traveled to, the center of my pride. I pointed to the many certificates hanging on the walls, saying I'd been to Africa and India, where I had answered God's call. We strolled through my lovely garden, where every exquisite flower's stem quoted very Christian phrases which indeed I had once said. Then after the tour of the house, I turned to God and said, "What do you think of my heart? Isn't it tidy, clean, and well kept?" God then looked at me with a sad little smile and replied, "My child, what about the last room, the one you forgot to talk about?" Suddenly, my face went pale, my hands started to shake. There's no way God saw that room when the rest of the house was so brightly lit. Because somewhere in my heart, in a dark, small room, stood a very little black box, not worth mentioning, not worth one look. I took care to fasten it tightly many years ago. I never allowed the iron to rust, and the chains were never old. But you see, I can explain myself. This box holds something dear, something I'm not willing to part with, something I desperately need to live and breathe. Softly God then took my hand and led me to that room. How he knew exactly where it was, I truly have no clue. We stood in front of that door, not different from the rest. I had painted it the same lovely shade of white, trying to make it blend in, at best. God looked at me so lovingly and whispered these quiet words, "Are you willing to surrender the sin you hide behind this door?" Pulse racing, heart aching, I quickly did reply, "Come back in a couple years, and I'll have enough good works for that." God's face suddenly twisted into an expression of pure pain, and the next words he said would never end up leaving my brain. "You say you believe in me, you say that you're a Christian, but since when did I encourage a prerequisite for remission? You have a Bible on your table, conveniently turned to John 3:16, but maybe you should flip to the book of Ephesians. It would better fit this unfitting scene. For by grace through faith you have been saved. It is a gift from God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. Have you not read my words at all?" As hot tears rolled down my face, I turned to God and said, "This sin, it's really bad. I need to prepare to let go of it." In that moment, for some odd reason, I knew that all the good works I had done would never get me out of this prison. But as I rejected God in exchange for my little black box, I knew I'd made a grave mistake, one which I thought time would lessen the blow of. As God stood in the doorway of my heart with tears in his eyes, he said with so much love, "I'll keep knocking." Then in conclusion, he sighed and turned the knob. I still live on a street called Holy Street, but as the years roll by, it starts to lose its luster, till all that's now left is the dust from all these houses. And now I watch how those people from the ghettos now live on a street called Redeemed. They're the ones we call beloveds. While they were ugly, poor, and dirty, they were broken enough to surrender to God fully. And here I was thinking that all my good works would distract the all-knowing God from noticing my folly. But I hear there's still a thing called mercy, And I'll keep using it on credit because goodness knows my little black box still needs its daily feeding. For now, this is where I stand, on Not So Holy, Holy Street.